So, a big bonfire was coming up for the whole community down at the beach. I was really hoping I was going to bump into Henry so that he could ask me. I hadn't seen him since the night of the 4th of July fireworks. At this point, I think it had been probably like 5 days. I really wanted to bump into him. So, a couple days before the bonfire, I got a text on my phone from a number that I didn't recognize, asking if I wanted to go to the bonfire. As it turns out, it wasn't Henry, it was Isabella's brother John. My life is obviously not a rom-com, and the boy who I wanted to ask me to the bonfire did not, and the boy I definitely didn't want to ask me to the bonfire did. I did say yes to John because I was like, what other choice do I have? Henry isn't knocking down my door to try and take me to this bonfire. And I really didn't want to show up to the bonfire alone because I thought I would look lame. Ultimately, I still sort of found John to be a bit questionable. I didn't like riding with him in his car. I didn't think I was going to like sitting with him at the bonfire. So I went to the bonfire with John, James, and Isabella. So it was a good group other than John. But once we got there, I was getting the blankets out of the back of John's car, and instantly James, who should have been there for me, was pulling Isabella away. I don't even know what for. And then John was nowhere to be found, so I was alone, despite my best efforts to not be alone. I was completely uncomfortable and really embarrassed, because I didn't want to show up to this bonfire alone. There were some guys playing guitars near the fire and singing songs, so I sat and pretended to listen. But then, while I was pretending to listen to the mediocre music, out of the corner of my eye, I spotted him. Henry Tilney. At first, I was disturbed because he was arm in arm with such a cute girl. And I was like, are you kidding me? At that point, seeing Henry with a super cute girl and being alone at the stupid bonfire, I was ready to run away. But then Henry and the girl approached me and he said, "Hi, Cate." And I was like, oh, he even remembers my name. He came right up to me with the girl and he was like, "This is someone I'd really like you to meet. This is my sister Ellie." Relief washed over me. It's his sister. I don't even have to worry. So we started to chat, and Ellie is the sweetest, sweetest person. She told me all about her summers on the Cape. I was just starting to really get into talking with her, though, when who should return? John Thorpe. He barged right up, interrupted, and demanded that I join him to go make s'mores. He has no grasp of social cues whatsoever. But because I had come to the bonfire with him officially, I thought it would be rude to turn him down, so I went with him. But I told Ellie it was so nice to meet her and that I'd like to talk to her soon. Later that evening, after the fires were sort of dying down, Isabella, James, and John had this awesome idea to go take the car out for a nice scenic drive. Honestly, I loved my summer on the Cape, and one of the nicest things was just riding around in the car and looking out the window and feeling the sea breeze and driving right along the ocean. Honestly, it's nothing like the hills and the forests that I'm used to in Indiana. There's something so mighty and captivating about the waves being so close to you. Anyway, we were getting ready to leave. James, of course, insisted to sit in the back with Isabella. It was fine. They were on their date. So I was again stuck up front with John. We spent what felt like hours driving up and down the coast with the breeze coming into the car. It would have been as lovely as it sounds if John wasn't a complete pain to spend time with. Let me put it to you this way. You know when you're trapped in a car and it's like you can't get any legroom or stretch out or just like be comfortable? That was essentially how it felt, except the thing taking up all the space in the car was John's big ego. Like, alright, it's cool, it's impressive that he's going to study law at BU. That's awesome. Very impressive. But oh my gosh, he would not shut up about it. I was like, I heard you the first time. We're excited for you. Great. Of course, being myself, I didn't say anything to him about it. I was sweet, and I listened, and I listened, and I listened. And actually, after a while, I just sort of looked out the window to the moonlight glittering on the ocean, and I wondered, what is Henry doing right now? Is he thinking of me like I'm thinking of him? I'm sure Henry could never ramble as much as John does. So the next day, after we've all slept in, Isabella stops by. My aunt invites her in. She's so excited that I'm making some friends on the Cape. So Isabella comes in and she will not stop talking about how much fun she had with James. And on the one hand, I'm really happy for her. I'm really happy for James that they're getting along so well. But he's also my brother, so I didn't need to hear everything. Anyway, she asks me to meet her at the pump room the next day on my day off so we can chat even more about it. I'm a little bit thinking to myself, what could she possibly have left to say about this whole thing? So the next morning we meet at the pump room, we say hello, and instantly Isabella's distracted. She went to go chat with one of the baristas. So I was by myself, which I often found myself this summer, instantly abandoned by one of the Thorpes. But it wasn't so bad because, moments later, who could show up but Ellie Tilney? She comes right up to me and asks if she can sit with me, and so we sit together, we sip our coffee, and we chat. She told me about all her favorite camping spots on the Lower Cape. She told me about summers on her dad's boat. Then somehow, I don't really know why, we started talking about Henry. I think I started to blush because she teased me about it. She did tell me that Henry was just as happy to see me at the bonfire as I was to see him. She asked me if I was going to go to the fire down in P-Town, and I said I was planning to go with the Thorpes. So I showed up with Isabella, James, and John again, but I instantly scooted away. I wanted to find the Tilneys, of course. I bumped into Henry and we started chatting. I told him how much I was loving my summer on the Cape, and he made fun of me. He keeps teasing me every time I mention how much I love the Cape. He tells me the excitement will wear off. Honestly, I would listen to Henry talk about anything, even if it is him chastising me for my taste. There's something about how effortless he is and how charming he sounds when he talks about anything. It's really too good to be true. And, of course, who should show up again but John Thorpe. Of course he finds us and instantly starts rambling about his car. I thought Henry would just ignore John and all of his rambling and talking about the car and the drive that we went on the other night, but honestly, Henry seemed a little bit bothered. I tried not to read too much into it, but I also thought there might be something more there. Why does Henry care so much? When John finally leaves us alone, Ellie comes around and Ellie and Henry invite me to go on a hike with them the next day. They said we should plan on going for a hike the next morning as long as the weather was good. And as I've learned, what they say in the Northeast is, if you don't like the weather, wait 10 minutes. The weather changes a lot here. Henry asked me for my number so that he could pick me up the next day. He asked for my number. Trust me, I was excited for the hike, but I was more excited that it meant that Henry had to ask for my number. I went home so excited about the hike and told my auntie all about it. She said she hopes the weather's good, but it looks like it's gonna rain. But then I prayed to myself, please let it only be a 10-minute rain, and then let the New England weather change. So I woke up the next morning, and of course, it was drizzling pretty constantly. I was freaking out a little bit because I couldn't just text Henry, because he had asked for my number, but I didn't have his yet. I couldn't contact him to see if they didn't want to go hiking or not anymore. The weather report said the rain would stop, but it just didn't look like it was going to. Of course, James had invited Izzy and John over for breakfast, so they were there when I woke up. And they didn't understand my disappointment at the weather. I didn't want to tell Isabella that I had other plans with some people when she wasn't invited, because I knew that was going to hurt her feelings.